Hello and welcome back to WCTV's only sports debate show, Plead Your Case. Today we opened up in the new semester with 3 great topics to get us right in to pleading our case. Our first topic will be the NFL Championship Sunday. We have Eagles and 49ers and Chiefs and Bengals. We're going to make our predictions to see who makes the Super Bowl. Our second topic will be in the NBA. We look at both conferences and see which teams have surprised us and which teams have disappointed us. And our third and final topic will be the Baseball Hall of Fame. The new ballot has came out, and by the time this is posted, they will have chosen who will make it into the Hall of Fame this year. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Plead Your Case. Welcome back to our first segment of Plead Your Case as we had the divisional round of the NFL playoffs this past weekend. We had the Chiefs and Jaguars starting us out on Saturday. That final score was Chiefs 27, Jaguars 20 in a very close AFC matchup. And the night game on Saturday was the Eagles as they put on a clinic against the Giants 38-7. And on Sunday, the Bengals walk into Buffalo and take the win 27-10. And to round out the rest of the divisional playoff, we had the 49ers and the Cowboys, with the 49ers taking that one 19-12. So I join my panel, Carter Newcome and Tyler Zeman. And guys, we have the stage set for Conference Championship Sunday, Chiefs, Bengals, and Eagles and 49ers. We're going to make our predictions for who do you think is going to make the Super Bowl. Carter, we're going to start off with you. The first game, Chiefs and Bengals. Who do you got?
So it's like deja vu a little bit from last year, but this is a whole different situation than it was a year ago. Last year, it was the upstart Bengals, and like, oh, yeah, the Chiefs are going to roll, they're going to roll. Now this year, the roles have almost been reversed. You got the Bengals, who look like world beaters at this point, right? And they're coming into this game flying high. The Chiefs they're banged up, especially Patrick Mahomes. The ankle is an issue for him right now. And everyone's saying, oh, the Bengals. I'm opposite. I'm going to go the Chiefs. I think, listen, the Bengals have had the Chiefs' number. They've beat them in the regular season each of the last 2 years. They beat them in the playoffs last year. I think this is the time that the Chiefs are going to cement their legacy as a dynasty per se, and they're going to go back to the Super Bowl even with a beat up guy in Patrick Mahomes and without Tyreek Hill. This is kind of a legacy game in my eyes for Patrick Mahomes, and I think it'll be a close game. I think it's going to come down to a butt-curve field goal to win it. And I think, the Bengals have coming off a bit of a hangover from the big win against the Bills last week.
Absolutely. So Carter does have the Chiefs. We're going to talk a little bit more on why we chose our picks in a little bit. But Tyler, first off, Chiefs, Bengals, who you got?
Well, I have to take the Bengals. I agree with you, Carter. I think the storyline is the same, but I feel like I'm taking the Bengals for a different reason. It's the same storyline, and last year the Bengals came in, they heated up at the right time. For me, they're doing it again this year. And like you said, Carter, Joe Burrow has had the Chiefs' number. He's outperformed Patrick Mahomes every time they've met, undefeated against the Chiefs. And I realize they have to go into a very tough Arrowhead Stadium, which will not be easy by any means. But I like Joe Burrow, and I like the Bengals. Again, a little bit of worry on the side of Patrick Mahomes with the injury. You wonder if that may affect him in this matchup, especially depending on the conditions and how the weather is down in Kansas City. But I like Joe Burrow in this one. I like the offense right now. And the defense, believe it or not, they're flying around. They gave Josh Allen a lot of trouble last week, and it really hurt the Bills offensively. And that's why I think that the Cincinnati defense is going to slow Patrick Mahomes down enough for Joe Burrow and the offense to take over.
So you have Bengals, Carter, you have Chiefs, and Carter, Tyler does make some valid points in the sense that the Bengals are heating up right at the right time and coming into this game with a lot of pressure on their hands, especially with the beat-up Mahomes. Well, why do you think wholeheartedly that the Chiefs are going to win this one as a whole?
Well, the NFL is a league that doesn't not always make a lot of sense, right? You're saying all these points, oh, the Bengals with this, and this. Yeah, it would make a lot of sense for the Bengals to come into Arrowhead and win, but football is a tough game. It's tough to beat a team like the Chiefs back-to-back years in the AFC Championship game on the road. And look, I think Patrick Mahomes, as great as Joe Burrow is, Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback through and through. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't think that's up for much debate. But it's a simple fact. I think Mahomes, this means more to them than I think it does for the Bengals. Just for the simple fact that Mahomes, they lost Tyreek Hill in the offseason, and he's hurt. And there's a bunch of naysayers now. They haven't really had that in his career, at least as of late. I think they have a lot more to play for in that situation. And honestly, like I said, it just doesn't, just because it makes sense doesn't mean it happens in the NFL.
So you're really riding high on this Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs train, or is it kind of mirroring the fact that you are a Steelers fan and you don't want the Bengals to be in the Super Bowl once again?
It is and it isn't. See, I listen. I'm not by any means a Bengals fan, but I'm not a Chiefs fan by any stretch of the imagination either. So I don't think it's too much of that. But you know, Joe Burrow he's been Joe Cole in the playoffs and whatnot. But at some point, it's gonna happen. He's gonna lose a playoff game. He's gonna look human in the playoffs. I think this scenario just will work for that. I just think it's bound to happen at some point, and why not Narrowhead on Sunday?
And now, Tyler, I pose the same question to you. You see, the points that you made about the Bengals riding high, but the Chiefs are a juggernaut that is really hard to beat, especially in Arrowhead. Why do you believe wholeheartedly that the Bengals win out this one?
Well, again, I think it's for the sole fact that just right now, Carter talked about it and why he picked Kansas City is that they have something to prove, but I think the Bengals also have a lot to prove. They went last year's Super Bowl championship game, lost it, and then they improved this year in the offseason, especially on that O-line. And we know the Kansas City Chiefs have injuries, but so do the Cincinnati Bengals on that offensive line. But again, I think it's the fact that the Bengals, they didn't have the best showing in the Super Bowl last year against the Rams. I think they have a lot to prove. They made offseason changes. Joe Burrow back and healthy, and you have to go up against the juggernaut in Kansas City. And we knew it was going to come down to either Kansas City and the Bills or Kansas City and the Bengals, and either team was going to have to get past them. But I just like Cincinnati right now. I feel like there's a sense of togetherness. They're playing together, and like I said before, it's just a little bit of they're heating up at the right time. They've had a tougher run to get here so far, and throughout the playoffs, the Chiefs had the bye week. So I feel like that playing the extra game has kind of gotten them more game ready.
So now moving on to the other side of things, guys, we have the NFC Championship, Eagles and 49ers. Carter, I'm going to have you first. Who do you got in this one?
Again, I'm not going to take the flashy, fun team that everyone's going to pick. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to take the Bengals like the first game. I think a lot of people are going to take the Eagles in this one. I'm not. I'm taking the more physical football team, the team that I think all around, I know they're not flashy, but I think they're going to win this game in the trenches, and I think they showed in the game that they played even against the Dallas, even though it was an ugly football game, they found a way to win an ugly game, and I think it's be a similar kind of scenario to last week's game and this week win against the Eagles. Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me it's really a coin toss at this point. I think both teams are so evenly matched when you look at them on paper. From the difference for me from the AFC game to this game is I think this one is really going to be one up front because both teams have very good offensive lines. Both teams have very good defensive lines for their own reasons. The Eagles have a lot of depth, and that has worked to their advantage. The 49ers, they have one of the best front sevens just talent-wise across the board. So I think it's really going to be one up front. I have concerns with Coach Sirianni just because he's never been in this position before as a head coach. I think Kyle Shanahan, when it comes to game-making decisions, which could be a factor, he's been in this situation before. I trust Kyle Shanahan a bit more, and the Purdy magic has been awesome so far. I like Brock Purdy. I think he's not – a lot of people have been saying he's kind of gotten out of his own way, but honestly, when you kind of watch the 49ers in the past couple of weeks, it feels like the things that he's done, he's kind of elevated the team further. It's not him trying to get out of his own way or trying to avoid making mistakes, but it's rather him going up to that next level and making the best play in the best situation to put this team up front.
Carter, this question is for you. Do you think that the 49ers have finally got their match with the explosive playmaking that they've been making in the later part of the season, or do you think this is just another day for them?
It appears to be that way right now. I think if you're asking me if you think if Purdy's the guy, I think yes. Until proven otherwise, I think he's got the keys to the offense as it is. They were talking a lot about it during the broadcast that he's not turning the ball over, he's doing the right things, but the offense has been playing better with him at quarterback than it was with Jimmy G or even Trey Lance. I know the Trey Lance sample size was very little, but they are playing better football. He's not turning the football over. He's only thrown 4 interceptions since he's taken over at quarterback. That is part of the reason why they've been as good as they have been. And like going back to this game, that's going to be their biggest asset. If he's able to hold on to the football, not turn the ball over, it's going to be hard to beat this 49ers team, I think.
Do you think the Eagles make it big time again, Tyler?
I think the Eagles make it really tough on the 49ers, but I like the 49ers over the Eagles just for the fact that I feel like they're led by a guy who's been in this position. They've kind of had the same storyline around them where they don't have a great quarterback. Brock Purdy is one of those guys that is on the bottom of the list when you look at the remaining quarterbacks, and it's kind of been the same way with Jimmy G. And Kyle Shanahan has been able to put Jimmy G in situations to take him to a Super Bowl. I think Brock Purdy is going to be better than Jimmy G, and I think, again, he's just going to prove why he's even more of the guy for the 49ers because he's going to be able to get it done in the NFC Championship game.
Well, thank you, guys. Our Final Four for football will be decided on Sunday to see who will be in the Super Bowl. But don't go anywhere. We have our NBA disappointing and surprising teams coming up next right here on Plead Your Case. Welcome back to our next segment here on Plead Your Case, and we have the NBA for you. Which team in each conference has surprised us and which team has disappointed us? Tyler, I'm going to start the first question to you. In the Western Conference, what team has surprised you and what team has disappointed you?
Well, for the surprise in the West, I have to go the Sacramento Kings. I think where they are right now after firing their head coach in the offseason, under new head coach Mike Brown, the transition that they've made, the development that they've made so quickly, I really like the Kings so far. They are in a very good spot in the West right now, sitting at a comfortable 27-19 record. And for me, I think this is a Kings team that no one really thought would be up there right now. I think, obviously there's still a lot of basketball left to go. So there's a chance for the Kings to kind of slide down towards the lower half of the playoff spots. But with how they have been playing, you have Fox, Sabonis, the superstars playing so well right now. I just really like how they're kind of trending in the right direction halfway through the season. And for my disappointment in the West, I have to go the Warriors outside of a playoff spot, 23-24, below 500. And it's really come down to two reasons for me why they're a disappointment is because their inability to win on the road. They're 4-16 on the road, which is not great. And both of their seasons where they won a championship, a ring, they only had no more than 11 losses on the road in the regular season. And I know we still are in the regular season and all that kind of stuff, but in order to win and be a championship contender, you have to be able to win on the road, especially in the loud NBA arenas. And right now, just their lack of depth, I think a lot of players coming off the bench haven't given them the exact production that they've expected them to give them when they signed them in the offseason. So for me, those are the two reasons why I think the Warriors have struggled and why they're a disappointment for me.
Absolutely. And Carter, your picks?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head there with the Kings. We had an opportunity to watch them last night, and I mean, man, they're a fun team to watch. I don't think they missed a three-pointer the entirety of the first quarter. I think they were like 9 of 9 in the first quarter from three. They just play the game so freely. It makes them such a fun team. But I'm not going to keep saying the same points you just mentioned about the Kings. Another team, the Pelicans, they're a team that's made a lot of strides. You got C.J. McCollum, Zion Williamson, and Brandon Ingram, as it stands right now, averaging over 20 points per game right now. Even though some of them are not playing as many games as others, that's still a very valuable stat at this point in time. I mean, you got the Kings at third, the Pelicans are at fourth. The West is a weird division in terms of who's at the top. The four top teams, you got Denver, you have the Kings, you have the Grizzlies, and then the Pelicans. Those are your top four. And then there's just an absolute logjam between 5 and 12. There's only, I believe, 3 games from the 5th place team to the 12th place team. It's kind of a real shame we have that joke of a play-in tournament because it would make that playoff race a lot more fun. But to go into some disappointing teams, though, obviously the Warriors are up there. The Phoenix Suns are one team I have written down, as well as the LA Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are just bad, in my opinion. Not much to it. they're just bad. There's not much else to it. At least with the Suns, they've been banged up. They've had some injuries, so they have a little bit more of an excuse. But I mean, I'm more upset with the LA Lakers just because you have LeBron James and he's supposed to will you to a playoff berth, and they're still in the running because the West is an absolute mess right now. But got to be upset with them.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys both hit the nail on the head, especially Tyler. I had both teams in my surprising and disappointing. Kings are fantastic right now at that 3 spot. And like you said, Carter, that log jam between 5 and 12 are just neck and neck, like 3 games between each of them. And each, like Tyler said, the disappointing team is the Warriors. Usually you see them at that 1 and 2 and 3 spot, but now they're at the lower end of that. And that's kind of surprising, especially if you are consistently watching the NBA. But now moving into the Eastern Conference, Tyler, I'll give your picks first. Who surprised you and who has disappointed you this season so far?
Well, my surprise isn't really, I guess, that big of a surprise. I am taking the Boston Celtics as my surprise team. I think with the offseason drama leading up to the season, kind of very close to the start of the season, I kind of expected them to struggle a bit more than they have. But 35-13, just about the halfway point of the season, isn't a bad place to be at right now. And the thing that really surprised me, I guess, and why I took them is the fact that they have a 4-game lead out in first place against a very tough kind of upper echelon Eastern Conference. You look, the 76ers, the Nets, the Bucks, for them to be 4 games out ahead of them at this point, I really like them. For my disappointing, though, I really have 2 teams. The Chicago Bulls, who I think they made improvements last year, and I thought a lot of people were really going to be high on them this year, and a lot of people were, but they haven't really lived up to the hype. For the Toronto Raptors, though, they're also one of the disappointing teams for me so far. I think when it comes to it, they have a lot of experience, like playoff-wise, leadership-wise, and they have a lot of veteran leadership on the team. But I think they're going to start to look to be kind of sellers come the trade deadline, just because they haven't really put all the pieces together. They haven't really found a true stride. They haven't found a true identity in kind of the way they've been playing. So that's why they've been disappointing for me.
Carter, your picks in the East?
Yeah, so for me, it's one of the more surprising. I'm not going to say it's a huge surprise, but I think they're a little bit strides ahead of where I thought they'd be, would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, obviously, they added Donovan Mitchell, so you're going to have your team should marginally be better. But, I just didn't foresee them being in the spot they're at right now through this point of the season. Another surprising team for me, being the Pacers. I mean, they're not a great basketball team in terms of roster-wise, but, they're in the playoff hunt, and, never know with where things come, at the later of the year where they might be at. Looking at some disappointing teams, I mean, Tyler wrote both of my teams. We talked a little bit prior to this, and so we have both teams written down. But one thing I do want to mention, though, your most surprising team, the Boston Celtics, last year, before they made their run to the NBA Finals, they were 20-21 around the midseason point before they ended up going the whole way to the NBA Finals. So don't count any of these teams out like the Raptors or the Bulls, because they could catch a stride just like the Celtics did last year.
Absolutely, and both of your teams, both your points, I should say, absolutely hit the head right on the nail. Cleveland Cavaliers was one of my picks as well for the surprising team. Like Carter said, did not think that they would be in the spot that they would be in at the time that they are now, especially coming in the middle of the pack there, and they could easily catch fire. And like my disappointing team, the Chicago Bulls, which I hope and pray that they do catch fire, and especially as DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion, is a very underrated basketball player that should get the praise that he deserves. But nonetheless, really quick, guys, just for the sense of some debate, real quick summary, who is your MVP at this moment in time right now?
For me, I think it's the Joker. I think the Nuggets just have been so good out in the West right now, and he's been kind of the main catalyst for that, so I've got to go Nikola Jokic.
I don't think there's a more important player to a team than Luka Doncic to the Mavericks. I think ultimately Luka would be the one getting the MVP because, of course, it's not just strictly how good you are of a player, it's how good your team is doing as well. But, I mean, the Dallas roster without Luka is borderline trash, to be honest. I mean, this team, without Luka, they'd be a lottery team, to be fair. But the only reason they're in the 5th spot in the West right now and they have any chance of being a competing team come in the playoffs, it's just because of Luka Doncic. I mean, the man's basically averaging a triple-double at this point. Best player in the NBA, I think, as of right now.
Couldn't agree with you more, Carter. But that's going to be all for the end of this NBA segment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to see who makes the Baseball Hall of Fame right here on Plead Your Case.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back to our last segment here on Plead Your Case, and we're going to look at the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot and predict who we think is going to get into this year's Hall of Fame class. And Carter, I start off with you. Is you guys are not too fond of this Hall of Fame class coming in to, should say Hall of Fame ballot coming into this one, but who do you think is going to make it?
Nobody. There's not going to be a single soul that makes it in the Hall of Fame ballot. This just seems to be a yearly tradition. Everyone gets all hyped up for the Hall of Fame, and we're not going to get anybody in there. So there's some people I think that should make it, but I don't think anyone will, to answer your question, Joe. Not this year, at least.
Ridiculous. Next,
I was going to say, I'm in the same boat as Carter. When you look at the ballot right now, there's really nobody that pops out to me that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. So I would go with nobody. But if I have to give you one guy that I guess could make it, I could see third baseman Scott Rowland getting into it. Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star, 8-time Gold Glove, a Silver Slugger Award. So I like Scott Rowland if I have to give you one person to get in, but if you want my honest opinion, I think there's going to be nobody.
You guys are missing the point. This is the Baseball Hall of Fame. Do you know how many baseball players are in the Baseball Hall of Fame, gentlemen? Seriously, a lot of them, Carter. A lot of them get in pretty easily as they walked in. Do you know who played for the Boston Red Sox in 1942, their starting relieving pitcher? Probably not, but you know what? He's probably in the Hall of Fame. So right. Now before I give you my answers, here's the 4 people that I believe is going to get in on this ballot this year. Billy Wagner, number 1, 8th year in the ballot, 422 saves, guaranteed across his career. Great years in Houston, almost won a World Series in Houston, and has a 50% chance of making it on the ballot this year so far. Next pick, Gary Sheffield, 6th year on the ballot, 40% odds. Great player in his time in the MLB. I think he walks in this ballot right now. My third pick and my most confident pick that I have so far in this ballot is Jeff Kent, 10th year on the ballot, good behind Bonds in his time in San Francisco. That man was an absolute stud behind the steroid-using Barry Bonds. And my fourth and final pick is going to be the Boston Red Sox legend, Manny Ramirez, his 6th year on the ballot, World Series champion. And I can't even tell you how many All-Star games this man went to, because it's too many for him to not be on this year's ballot. I mean, guys, seriously, what is your argument? Carter, I'm going to start with you. For why do you think none of these people should be on the Hall of Fame ballot?
See, it's not, the question you asked me was who do I think is going to get in, not who do I think is going to get in, not who I believe is deserving of getting in. They're not going to vote anybody in because that's how they have, that's just, that tend to be. I think there's people that should get in the Hall of Fame. Like, I like Jeff Kent, Survivor legend, by the way. But I think Jeff Kent should be a guy that gets in, right? I think there's I think Todd Helton should get in. Heck, he's got OPS of 953 for his career. Wins over replacements for 60. I think Scott Rowland should get in. I'd love to see Jeff Kent get in. I'd love to see Manny Ramirez get in. And a guy that I don't think you want to see get in. I think A-Rod's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I would like to see Rodriguez get in. Only his 2nd year on the ballot, so I don't think that maybe necessarily that he's going to get in this year. But there's also other guys 1st year on the ballot like Beltran, Peralta, and then you have Abreu 4th year on the ballot that I think are deserving to get in. I just think with how early this is only their first go around on the ballot. So I think that maybe it's not the right time to put them in, but I think they'll eventually will get in. Just right now, when you look at the guys who are coming down their final years of eligibility to get into the Hall of Fame, none of them really jump out at me except for Rowland. I think he would probably be the only guy that really deserves to get in. But I think the voters, with how they've kind of trended the past couple of years, I think that a lot of ballots will come in blank, and a lot of guys will be left out of the Hall of Fame this year.
And I understand your point on these guys should be deserving to get in. They should be, in the Hall of Fame. But there is a ballot to be written, and there are 4 guys that, especially I said, and especially that you guys alluded to, that should be on these Hall of Fame ballots. I mean, I believe a lot of these people should be in the Hall of Fame right now. But with the A-Rod argument, my argument is, like you said, only second year on the ballot right now. I believe he's going to get in eventually. As much as I hate it, I cannot stand that man with everything else in me. But I mean, he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. Nonetheless, especially in his younger years, winning MVPs in Seattle and then crying and then going to the Yankees, crying some more and then retiring, saying, "Oh, I didn't take any steroids." But yes, A-Rod, you took steroids throughout your whole career. Don't lie to yourself. But speaking of steroids, the question is always brought up every year, and I really want to get you guys' takes on it. Does Bonds finally make the Hall of Fame? I mean, it's been years now, but I mean, why not? Why not at this point, Carter? Why not?
He should be in the Hall of Fame. He's arguably one of the biggest things that happened to. He's probably the biggest thing that happened to baseball in the last 30 years. But he's not. They're not going to put him in the Hall of Fame. So I'm not going to get all worked up about it. I mean, honestly, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is basically like the hardest country club you could possibly try to get into in the world. I mean, basically, if you were a baseball player that played between 1990 and 2005, you have better luck finding somewhere else. I mean, heck, you might have a better odds getting into the Basketball Hall of Fame than you would the Baseball Hall of Fame, honestly.
And fair.
Yeah, I think it really just goes to show the state of kind of the Baseball Hall of Fame. You have guys in the Hall of Fame that are possibly proclaimed steroid users. You have guys left out of the Hall of Fame because they were proclaimed steroid users. So I think it's just so unbalanced, and it just really goes to show kind of the state that Major League Baseball's in, the Hall of Fame is in. I mean, it's really sad to see guys that, have a great resume be left out, but it's just kind of how the Baseball Hall of Fame is kind of starting to turn into. It's really just up to the people, and a lot of these people who vote, I think, kind of just the name maybe doesn't scream out to you as a Hall of Famer like some names would in like the NFL Hall of Fame or like the NBA Hall of Fame. So I think that's why a lot of these guys get left off the ballots, because they weren't up there. But it just, again, kind of just goes to show the state of the MLB right now.
Absolutely, and you bring up a good point. And I was very passionate about, the ballots being made, and for especially the Baseball Hall of Fame. But Carter, I pose you this question, is Tyler brought up a lot of valid points that makes the Baseball Hall of Fame lose its credibility, and especially, some of the guys that they have in and some of the guys that they have let out. Is there any other problems that you see, especially just in Hall of Fame ballots as a whole, or, specifically in this baseball one, as we kind of alluded to the steroids, and even you want to go into Pete Rose and the betting situation?
I mean, the Baseball Hall of Fame's got probably the worst as a whole in terms of any of the big 4 sports leagues. I mean, it's just a whole mess. I mean, and what I don't understand is, in what process can you just send in an empty ballot and you go, all right, job's done. Oh, I handed an empty assignment, it has nothing on it except my name. Boom, project completed. I mean, heck, if that was a homework assignment, I'd be really good at that. But I mean, like these guys, there's 396 total voters, I believe, for this year. And there's going to be a whole bunch of, I'd say probably more than half, but almost probably to empty, complete ballot. I mean, it's a joke for the entire Major League Baseball. And, it's really sad what it's kind of come to, because it's like, I don't even care almost about the Hall of Fame anymore, because it doesn't seem like there's any reason to, because they're just not going to let anybody in.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that, and I talk about the steroids and stuff, but it really kind of starts up front with the voters and who they allow to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and with people having the option to just leave stuff blank and turn stuff in, it kind of ruins the whole purpose, because a lot of these guys, yeah, they did work very hard to get the success that they had. They did, have great careers, but it really just comes down to the opinion of the baseball voters, and with them being allowed to turn in a blank ballot, I think it kind of ruins it, and I think that's really where it starts for the Baseball Hall of Fame, the problems that start for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you guys. This has been a very fun episode and great topics all around against our debates. And like I always say, keep Alex Rodriguez out of the Hall of Fame. And that's going to be it for this episode of Plead Your Case. Check back every Wednesday on the cable channel here on WCTV 14.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.